A close friend of mine, Austin, likes to boast about the fact that he can turn anything into a working and playable guitar. He's amassed a number of followers on Facebook and Instagram showing off his work, and you can't help but marvel at his creations. He's made fully working electric guitars out of a toaster, a shovel, an alloy from a tire, even a set of freaking bricks. Well, the last video he posted was over 7 months ago. I haven't seen him in 2 weeks, and the last time I did, he looked simply awful. Let's back up to 7.5 months ago. Austin was looking through some of the suggestions he was receiving from his social media followers. People leave comments asking him to do other things. He's had people ask him to turn an iPad into a guitar, a PS4, a car battery, and even a keyboard. A musical one. He only ever took the truly challenging ones under consideration, or the ones that would end up being controversial. Then, there was a follower by the name of Dark Void Maniac who sent him a request to turn a Ouija board into a guitar. First things first, Austin is a huge denier of the paranormal. Any footage or stories of people saying that they have seen what the other side is capable of, he simply brushes it off as people being fantasizers or just people being very talented and creative enough to make such footage. He had never once even thought of the idea of contacting the other side would be possible. Me, on the other hand, I believe that there is some way that spirits can creep on through to our side. There is some footage out there that is just far too compelling, and I even met a few people who said they've been in contact with the paranormal before. You can never really tell by the way a person tells the story if it's really true or not, but you can tell by their eyes. Their eyes always tell the full story. They can let you know if the person is exaggerating a bit more than what actually happened, or they can tell you that the person is telling you the full story, as if the full version is just too chilling for someone to hear, and it's now their burden to carry. I believe that if someone is willing to open their heart and have their eyes born to me like that, then there must be some things on the other side that can break through the barriers and get to us. Austin saw the Ouija comment and immediately started flapping, saying it would be the easiest way to get his most views ever, and that once it was all done, it would just collect dust, never to be touched again. I told him to be careful. Yes, the Ouija board is just a game by Hasbro, but there is a lot of people who have had full-on conversations using Ouija boards, and the people playing never intentionally moved the planchette. Sure, some will claim to never move the thing, but end up doing it subconsciously anyway. But you can tell when someone has no doubt that they did not move it. It's all in their eyes, remember? I went around to his house a few days after the suggestion with a box of beer with the intention of watching a Premier League match. I approached his door and saw it was open. Odd, but nothing to be concerned about. I walked straight in, announced my arrival. "Austin, it's Jimmy. You here?" Cue Austin to come rushing to the kitchen, which is where the door to his house opens to, and he just had the biggest smile on his face. He dragged me into the living room and sat me on the floor. I was then surrounded by sketches and diagrams, all showing his drafts and plans on how he put the Ouija tar, his word, not mine, together. "It's looking good. You still sure you want to go through with this one? You never know what people might say when the video goes up." "Doesn't matter, man. Views are views." He had a point. He then asked me if I wanted to see something else. Something awesome. I obviously said yes. And out he pulls out a box. He puts his thumb under the lid and says, "Ready?" I made a frustrated gesture to make him open it quick. There at the base of the box is an old slab of wood with the alphabet on it. Yes and no in the corners, and goodbye at the bottom. He got right ahead and purchased a Ouija board. But Not just any Ouija board. Far from it. The certificate of authenticity said that this was an Elijah Bond original. Elijah Bond was the guy who invented and patented the Ouija board back in 1880. I asked Austin how much the thing cost. It'll pay for itself with all the views this thing is gonna get. Loosely translated, that means it costs an absolute shitload. I asked why. Why go to this much trouble? You could get a board for less and a tenner online. He stated, the older the better and the creepier, or some of the believers will say. We eventually started watching the match between Manchester United and Newcastle United with the beers I brought. It was an exciting affair with the Magpies winning 1-0. We drank more than we should have though, and ended up dozing off about 10 minutes after the conclusion. When I came to, the analysis after the match had long ended. I looked around the room and Austin was nowhere to be seen. I figured he'd excuse himself to the toilet until I heard some crashing coming from the outside. I crouched and carefully walked into the darkness of the kitchen to see if someone was attempting to break into Austin's shed, only to see it was Austin himself. He was pulling out his workbench and his toolkit. He did all of his work outside, so he wasn't going to be pulling the equipment inside. I had to go out and see what was wrong. He said he needed to get started right away and that any time wasted was time that he wouldn't be getting views. The whole thing was going to his head. As he was frantically yanking things out of his shed, with no real coordination to his actions, I saw a look of obsession in his face. I'd only ever seen that once before, and that was when he developed an addiction to World of Warcraft. He generated tons of debt because of that game. He'd spend days and days not even bothering to shower, and lost his job and his girlfriend because of the game. He finally, after many an intervention, stopped playing. But the look on his face that he had while playing, the look he had when he was able to breathe easy because the game accepted his new credit card, was the same look he was wearing now. A look of utter obsession. I literally had to drag him back into the house, stick him in front of the TV and load up Netflix. I needed to get him to unwind, so I stuck on a stand-up comedy special. He was restless for the first 10 minutes and kept on glancing back at the door and at me, looking for a way back to the shed. After the first 10 minutes, though, we were fixed to the screen. Another 25 minutes later, he was asleep. As I noticed this, I silently threw my arms up in a sarcastic celebration. He was finally down for the count. I locked up his house, put everything back into his shed, and posted the keys back through the letterbox. I'd place a pillow at the door so the keys didn't make a deafening crash on the way back into the house. I was finally able to get home at around 12 a.m. and played some Overwatch before finally going to bed. I didn't see Austin for the next week. I messaged him via text, Facebook Messenger, and even DM'd him on Twitter with 0 responses. I rang him many times too. Same result. It got to exactly a week since I'd seen him and decided I'd head round to his place. When I got there, I did not find his home in a state of disarray. I did not find him in a heap of body parts in the corner of a living room, and I did not find him rocking with his knees tucked up to his chin while repeating something in a melancholic manner. Inside, I found him out in his garden tapping away on his laptop. The garden was immaculate. I'd find out a little later that the house was the same. Vacuumed and polished from top to bottom, the lines from the vacuum still fresh on the carpet. I sat down at his garden table opposite him and made a pissed-off face with a shrugging "what the hell, man?" movement with my arms. He looked up from his laptop and had the brightest smile on his face. He looked better than he had in years. He had an energy about him that made him seem like he was on some strong-as-hell antidepressants. Nothing. I feel great, man. In fact, I'm putting the finishing touches on the Ouija video now. You finished the whole thing already? That's why I never got any replies from you? Yeah, man, you know how it is. I need 0 distractions. Everything goes off and stays off until I'm done. Which is right about now. He ended the sentence with a bash of the enter key. This struck me as, well, absolute bullshit. He's never been one to just zone completely in on his work and do it to completion. He's a procrastinator. Austin turning a shovel into a guitar took about a month, and that was the shortest one he'd ever made. He would always do the tiniest bits at a time. If you watch his videos, he's wearing like 15 different t-shirts throughout the frames. So what changed? He suddenly went from taking his sweet-ass time to finishing the project as soon as possible. What was the big deal with the Ouija board? Those two questions were going to be answered pretty soon, and I wasn't going to like the answers. Over the course of the next month, the Ouija video shot to success. YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram were going mental over a Ouija board guitar. His followers and subscribers were going through the roof, and yet, while looking over his channel and other social media pages, he just went radio silent after the initial upload. Now, what was he up to? I wished at that point that Dark Void Maniac had never left that comment suggestion. Work was kicking into high gear with the summer months kicking in, so I had absolutely no time to visit Austin. I'd always be monitoring his pages for any comments or any activity in general from himself, and every time I checked there would be absolutely nothing. I wasn't too worried though. He would reply to my messages after all, saying things like, "Yeah, I'm fine, just working on the next video," or "Don't bother yourself coming around, bro, I'm totally fine. Promise." So I was content. I got home one June night, sat down on my couch, when I realized I haven't even watched the Ouija video yet. How I'd miss doing that, I have no clue. But I watched it right away on my PS4. Yeah, I actually used the YouTube app. This is what I saw unfold over the next 15 minutes. The normal intro to his videos is a simple 10-second animation of his channel name and some heavy metal mixed with dubstep for the music to accompany it. Simple, but effective. This time, there was no green and black intro text or any dub metal. It was a simple fade into Austin's face, illuminated by candlelight. He was surrounded by them. He was staring into the camera for about 5 seconds before speaking. "Hey, what's up, citizens of me? Bit of a different video this time round, as you can probably see." It was at this point I realized that the video had over 3.5 million views on YouTube alone. Who knows how many had accompanied across the networks he'd posted it. He continued speaking. "So first thing, major shout out to Dark Void Maniac for suggesting this one. As you can see from the title of the video, we're going to be turning a Ouija board into a guitar. But first, we're going to have a little fun with the board." Shit! That's the one thing I could think of at that moment. The word shit over and over again in my mind. See, I'm a huge skeptic of the paranormal. I'm the type of person who believes that when you die, that's it. You're dead. Nothing left but a corpse. No soul escapes you, your spirit doesn't drift off somewhere, and you're just gone, lights out. Therefore, I'll show you nothing will happen when I do this Ouija session right now. He started moving back from the camera. He had done the stupidest thing possible. Not only was he surrounded by candlelight, but he also decided to place the old Ouija board on a small table with a cloth thrown over it. Surrounding the table, drawn on the floor, was a damn pentagram. What the hell he was thinking must have, well, clearly wasn't thinking of, and clearly had no idea what he was doing. When I saw what was drawn on the ground, a second word entered my mind, started repeating in my mind. I even muttered it a few times. Fuck, 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 fuck. Austin then proceeded to place the planchette on the board and started by saying, Are there any spirits, apparitions, or demons in the room with me right now? No movement. Dude, chicken. Alright. There is anything there. Can you move the planchette to the letter A? No movement. Seriously wasting my time here. If there's anything standing behind me, move the planchette to yes. Movement. Whoa. Whoa, fuck, what the fuck? Austin was freaking out. It didn't look forced or staged. This looked real. Remember, I know when Austin is being real, and this was it. He placed his hands back on the planchette and said another question. What's your name? In a very shaky voice. The planchette began moving again, this time to the word no. Okay, don't tell me your name, fine. Why are you here? This time the planchette moved across the letters, and Austin called them out. GNORWDRAOBESU. Okay, bro, whatever. I'm just gonna turn this thing into a guitar now. Fuck this. He stood up, tearing off his lapel mic in the process, walked out of the frame, and the video faded out. When it faded back in, it was the illumination of the midday sun in his garden, where he began putting together the Ouija guitar. I had to go back to what the board said to him. I wrote down the letters, and in order, they said, Nordravisu? I had to go back to what the board said to him. I wrote down the letters, and in order, they said, Nordraubesu? I tried dividing the letter up into sections to make works. Nordraubesu, Nordraobesu, No Obesu. I was stumped till I stood up from the paper I had written the letters on to go get some cereal before bed. Upon returning, I saw the letters again. This time they were upside down. It was crystal clear then. Whatever had spoken to Austin spelt whatever they had spelt out backwards. The letters were actually USEBOARDWRONG. The string of letter was right there. Use board wrong. The thing that was moving the planchette with Austin was telling them that he was intending to use the board incorrectly. It was a warning. An unclear warning, but a warning. A warning that Austin obviously did not heed. That settled it. The next day, with it being my day off, I got up at 9 a.m. and went straight to Austin's house. As soon as I had got there, I knew something was wrong. He was sitting in his garden again, the same position as the last time I had seen him as he was putting the finishing touches on his video. However, this time, instead of having his laptop in front of him, he had nothing but empty space in front of him. I sat down opposite him and looked at him. He wasn't moving. I waved my hand in front of his face and got no response either. I eventually got him to come round by clicking my fingers and gave me a short, loud whistle. The reaction I got was one of utter confusion. Jimmy, when'd you get here? You weren't there a second ago. His eyes were a dark red and were encircled by purple as if he hadn't slept in weeks. His lips were white, too, as if he hadn't taken a spit of water in the same time span, and his voice was hoarse, too. I just got here, Austin. You look awful. Are you sick? What's up? Nothing, man. I'm fine. Just getting a little less sleep, reading all the comments of the video. So far, it's doing well. So far? Dude, it's bottoming out now. What day do you think it is? It's June 9th. I uploaded the video 4 days ago. Duh. That was when a shiver went down my spine. What he just said was completely inaccurate. So you're saying you think it's June 9th? He gave a small nod. Austin, it's June 27th. What the hell happened to you? His eyes widened and started to look absolutely petrified. He then turned his head towards the door of his house and said something that, to this very day, has stuck with me and feels like it'll haunt me for the remainder of my days. It's that thing. The board. It taunts me. It keeps me awake at night. It never leaves me alone. As soon as I step foot into that house, it starts playing. It plays a slow melody. Do you know what that melody makes me feel? It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel lower than low. It makes me want to open the bedroom window and throw myself headfirst from it. It makes me want to turn on the car and garage and gas myself. Then yesterday, or whatever day it really was, I found myself suddenly tying sheets together. I was going to hang myself. It just never stops. I looked just past us into the house, and there it was. The Ouija tar, plain as day, facing us. And I know this sounds crazy. Seemed like it was looking at us, waiting for us to come near before it strummed its tune again. I can't go back in there. Not while that thing is back in there. I can't go back in there. Not while that thing is there. Austin said this while hugging his body, rocking backwards and forwards and shaking his head vigorously from side to side. Okay, just give me a sec. I entered the house and immediately noticed that the air seemed heavy, and it was as if something was trying to stop me walking forward, like a resistive force. I got to the guitar, and as I reached, there was a soft hum of strings. They emitted a quiet strum before I even touched it. I grabbed hold of the thing and walked out the door into the garden. As soon as both feet were outside the house, the door slammed behind me, the force of the slam making me take an extra step to avoid falling forwards. I looked back and saw nothing, but it was as if something closed that door on its way out of the house, as if something attached to the Ouija board slammed the door because I hadn't. Alright, you should be able to get back into your house now. I stopped mid-sentence to see Austin shaking and looking at me, his eyes saying to me, "How are you even holding that thing?" I continued talking. "I'll stick this in your shed. You should be able to get some sleep tonight." I picked up his phone and slapped it into his hand. "Here, if you need anything, call me straight away, and I'll be here as soon as I can. I have to go now, but you can get yourself in the house now. Go to bed, and don't come out until you've caught up on sleep. Deal?" He gingerly got to his feet and managed a tired smile of acknowledgement before entering his house and locking the door behind him. I saw him limp towards the staircase to the window. I took the Ouija tar over to the shed, placed it inside, and padlocked the door. That was my cue to exit. I gave the shed that now housed the Ouija tar a look of confused and worried wonderment before getting into my car and having a thoughtless drive back to my house. 2 days went by when I got a call from Austin. He was screaming at me down the phone, telling me that it wasn't funny and that it was going to kill me for what I did. I couldn't get a word in edgeways. I, despite having tons of verbal abuse thrown my way, spoke through the noise and told him I'd be right over. I just got back from work as it was and still had my coat and shoes on, and the call came through while entering my house. I was back on the road within seconds of ending the call. I pulled back up to Austin's house to discover that every single light in his house was off, but the garden light was on. It's a motion-sensing light, so it only turns on when something moves close to it. I rushed into the garden and saw Austin pacing. Austin? What's wrong? You sounded pretty shaken on the Whoa. I was cut off by Austin lunging at me, throwing me up against the wall of his garage, and held me there by the neck. He started shouting at me through gritted teeth and spitting whenever he spoke. You think this is funny? You think this is a little game to play with me? You want to mess with me? You're messing with the wrong person, fucker. As he sang this, I noticed the even deeper purple rings around his eyes. He still hadn't slept in days. The whites of his eyes were bloodshot to hell, and his eyes were drifting in and out of the light. His pupils were hardly reacting to the censored light. Must have been like looking through cling film or saran wrap. I pushed him off me when I didn't expect to be able to do as easily as I had. He was weak as hell, weaker than I'd ever known him to be. It was as if I could have pushed him with my thumb and he'd have been forced to remove his grip from my neck. As he stumbled back, he held himself upright with one of his patio chairs. And as he did, he looked back into the house and then immediately hit the deck, his face basically kissing the ground. He carefully and shakily looked up and then he said, "It can see me. It always knows where I am. Why would you put it back in my house?" I looked into his house with chills running up my spine. Then, propped up against Austin's cooker, was the Ouija tar. I spanned my head round to look at the shed. I raced over to it, only to see that the traditional lock was still locked, as was the padlock over the clasp of the door. This was extra terrifying to me due to what I hadn't told Austin. I pulled my wallet from my back pocket, and from the inside nut slot, I pulled out the one and only key to the padlock and the traditional lock. I took them so that Austin wouldn't be tempted to go searching for the thing. So how the hell did the Ouija tar get from inside of a locked shed into the house when I had the only keys and neither was broken? I burst through the door of the house. I could feel the resistive force again, stronger than last time. But that's the best thing about being human. We can overcome force. That's why we can so easily walk around and not slump to the ground due to gravity. We know what goes up must come down and use this to our advantage. And we know that if something hits harder than it, then it will probably die. I fought past the pressure on my front and made it to the Ouija tar. I grasped it back the neck and turned around to go outside when the front door slammed in front of me. I wasn't going to be allowed to leave this house. Austin's head then appeared from behind the table and chairs. He looked stunned again. He ran to the door and was trying to push it open while I was trying to pull it. Austin's head then appeared from behind the table and chairs. He looked stunned again. He ran to the door and was trying to push it open while I was trying to pull it. It seemed like he was opening the door in millimeters per second. It was ever so slowly opening, and eventually I was able to grip my free hand around the open side, and using all of my strength, I pulled the door wide open and fled to the outside. Without missing a beat, I took up the Ouija tar in both of my hands, flung it above my head, and slammed it down into the concrete. The original board cracked on the first slam. The second slam cracked it even more. The third made it fall into two, and the fourth removed the neck. The guitar was now in 3 chunks. As I stood over the destroyed pieces of wood with Austin beside me, we felt something barge between us and seemingly screamed on the way through. We were both knocked off balance. Austin turned to me and said, "I can feel it. Presence. The presence is gone." He then hugged me from the side, thanking me. I told him not to celebrate just yet. I picked up all 3 parts to the guitar and threw them into the fire pit. I picked up the bottle of kerosene beside the pit and doused the wood in it, lit a match, and dropped that on top. It went up in smoke. I placed several pieces of coal into the fire as well to keep it going and make sure the guitar would completely cease to exist. I felt a tap on my arm. I turned and looked to see Austin holding out a bottle of beer. "Hang out for a bit?" I smiled in reply. We spent an hour and a half talking about anything but his little hobby. Football, NFL, anime, crime shows, audiobooks. It was like the old days again. Things returned to normal. Or so it seemed. I was throwing some stuff into my dishwasher when I heard an odd sound coming from somewhere. Never heard that music before. I went over to my phone and saw it was Google Duo, an app I was yet to use. Austin was wanting to video chat me. I knocked on the screen to view his camera to see what he was up to before answering. The camera was a little dark and showed only the left side of his face. It looked like he was crying too. I slid my finger to the answer icon and there I heard it. Austin was crying. "Hey man, you alright? What's up?"
"It's back. It's fucking back and it won't stop."
"Wait, what? What's back?"
Shh, shh.
He quieted me down and started to look around.
You hear that? You hear that?
I put the phone closer to my ear so I could hear it. A slight melody could be heard playing in the background. It was playing that same melancholic rhythm from before. "Austin, get out of the house."
I'm trying, but
The connection died. Fuck! I grabbed socks, shoes, my coat, and keys and sprinted for my car. I basically broke every traffic law known to man in order to get to his house quickly. When I got there, the whole house was in darkness again. I burst through his unlocked door and ran through the house. I went from room to room, switching on every light as I went. Not a single sign of Austin or the Ouija guitar. He was gone. It was gone. I looked down on his bedroom floor and saw that he had left his phone. His keys were also still in the bowl in the kitchen. He hadn't packed any clothes either. It was as if Austin had just walked off with nothing in his arms. I wrote a note asking him to call me as soon as he returned and left it on the kitchen bench. This was 2 weeks ago. I got a knock at the door from someone a day ago. This was the conversation that followed. "Hello, James Owens?" "Yeah? How can I help you, officer?" "I'm here to tell you about your brother Austin." "You found him?" "Yes, we found him. But it's not good news." What does that mean?" "Mr. Owens, we found Austin in his bedroom. He'd hung himself." What? "I'm very sorry for your loss. I'm gonna take you to the station." No, that's not necessary. Thank you." I shut the door. You may be thinking, brother. Well, Austin and I saw each other as best friends because we had been fostered together. Both sets of parents passed away in the same accident, and we somehow just ended up growing up together. People would take us as package deals. People knew we weren't brothers, but we damn well might as well have been. I did the same thing I had last time, grabbed all my crap and raced over to Austin's house. I tried to get under the police tape, but was held back. Then an officer started talking to me. I recognized him from my front door, but I didn't hear a single word from him. Behind him, a body bag with no signs of life was being wheeled into the back of a van. Upon seeing this, I crumpled to the ground. A large part of my world collapsed in on itself. I felt so alone. On a street filled with about 100 people, I felt alone. At Austin's funeral, everyone had nothing but nice things to say about him. A surprising fact was that they were all true. Our various foster parents said things. Our old classmates and teachers too, and everything they said was the truth. I again felt so alone. There was one thing that kept niggling at the back of my mind though. Our first foster parent, Abigail, said, "I never got to say goodbye." Our third, Oliver, said, I'll never get to say I love you and goodbye again. Our sixth from class leader, Jonathan, said he was always the nicest guy in the room, along with Jimmy. Goodbye and good night, my friend. A friend of his from school, Keely, said, I will love you forever and always. Goodbye and rest in peace. Everyone got to say goodbye, but he didn't get to do that. He didn't get to say goodbye. He didn't say goodbye. He never said goodbye. The penny dropped. Austin never ended the Ouija board game he played at the beginning of his Ouija video. He just walked off. I looked up the video and watched him. Austin never ended the Ouija board game he played at the beginning of his Ouija video. He just walked off. I looked up the video and watched him. He never moved the planchette to the word goodbye at the bottom of the board. Austin never said goodbye. The game was still being played. Next thing I knew, I was standing outside of Austin's house. I walked through every room. It was as if the act of him killing himself had never taken place. I looked at his mantelpiece. Pictures. Snapshots of moments in time from our lives. I picked one of us where we were playing football at 14 years old. We were brothers then as we are brothers now. No amounts of planes of existences can change that. As I was about to cry while looking at the picture, I heard something. I heard it. I heard a melancholic rhythm that made me feel anger and sadness. I ran in the direction of the sound, the bedroom, the room Austin took his life in. I opened the door, and there it was, lying on the bed, pristine condition, not a single blue mark or a sign that I'd smashed a thing into the ground. It was as good as new. It was continuing to play its tune, the strings moving as if an invisible person was playing it right there on the bed. Upon the top of the neck was a pick, a see-through pick. It looked like it had been made from the see-through section of the planchette. I reached for the pick, feeling a minor resistive force, but nothing huge. I slid the pick into my fingers and placed it onto the Ouija board. Just underneath the strings, the music stopped. Not a single sound was coming from anywhere. My ears weren't even hearing the sound of my ears trying to look for sound. The world was on mute. I placed my fingers on the mini planchette and moved it down to the word and said it out loud. Goodbye. It felt like I was saying it to end the game and to Austin. I took my fingers off the planchette and moved to exit the house. I made it to the front door and opened it. It didn't even get 10 centimeters when it slammed shut in front of me. The next thing I knew, everything went black. And the last thing I heard was,
It's true.